Hey everyone, Grandmaster Ben Feingold here. Some of you asked me to grow a beard, which I did due to laziness, but it's going to be gone tomorrow. So here today, gone tomorrow. Today was a great day. We got our tables for our chess center, and Nakamura lost with white, so obviously I'm going to show that game. And he's tied for last, where he belongs. And Wesley, so I guess, sort of gave up this tournament. He played for a draw with white and very easily achieved it against Fabiano Caruana. Um, Ananda is having one of the best tournaments in quite a long time. He's +2, undefeated, tied for first. Amazing. Now, before I show you the game of the day, well, okay, first of all, I'll give you the spoiler. I didn't get my check, obviously. No check. Okay, but I have to yell at all of you for your Carlsen envy and tell you how wrong you are. And I talked to a friend of mine who's a good chess player, and he's just like, you guys are the gawking rabble, so there's no reason to talk to people on the internet who, you know, aren't very smart. But I'll try because it's my video, it's my channel. And I argue with a lot of people in the live broadcast about the fact that Carlsen isn't as good as he used to be. And my wife is usually the voice of reason, and she just completely agrees with me. It's very clear that Magnus is not better than everybody like he used to be. And I acknowledge between 2012 and 2014, Magnus was much better than everybody else. It wasn't close. It was clear who the best player in the world was. In the last year and a half, it's clear that nothing's clear. And to say that Magnus is better because he's the world champion, that doesn't make any sense. And to say that he's better because his rating is higher also doesn't make any sense. For example, let me give you an example because you guys seem to have trouble understanding things. Let's say Magnus was rated 3,000 and he was the best player who ever lived. And the second highest rated player was 2,700. This is an example. And Magnus is 300 points higher than everybody. And let's say it's 2012. Okay, I just made all that up. Then let's say in 2017, Magnus is 2810 and there's 5 guys rated 2790 to 2800. Well, obviously, in those 5 years, Magnus has lost 200 rating points. People have gained rating points. And obviously, in those years, he wasn't playing the way he used to. And basically, that's what's happening. It's just at a smaller level. That's why you guys can't understand it. But Magnus was in like 2885. Maybe he was higher than that. And now he's 2820. So that's like terrible. And other people who were 2,700, 2,750, like MVL and Wesley So and Anish Giri, and I can go on and on, now they're 2,790, 2,800, 2,810. So if you look at the top 6 players in the world, they're all between like 2,798 and 2,822. They're all within like 20 points of each other. So Magnus has like the same rating as the other people. And in fact, any day, if Magnus loses and like the number 2 player wins, it's not clear who's number 1 anymore. Whereas in 2013, 2014, that wasn't going to happen. Magnus wasn't going to lose. Magnus won every tournament, and Magnus was much higher than everybody else. So it's true, Magnus was by far the best player in the world, but the key word is was. So he's not anymore, and he doesn't win tournaments. And somebody was arguing with me on my channel and said, you said he hasn't won a tournament in 14 months, but he won a tournament in July of 2016, which is 13 months. So, I mean, next month I'll be right because he's not winning this tournament. Magnus is in 4th place. He's +1. He's not showing he's better than the other players, and he hasn't shown that in a lot of tournaments. In last year's Sinquefield Cup, Wesley So won. In last year's London Chess Classic, Wesley So won. In this year's Tata Steel, Wesley So won. And in this year's U.S. Championship, ahead of Caruana and Nakamura, Wesley So won. So Wesley So was the best player in the world, and there was no question about it. And then, after, I would say, April of this year, Wesley So's not been playing great, although he did do really well in either Paris or Leuven, I forgot. It was one of them. I think it was Leuven. But, okay, you guys are going to say stuff in the chat. But in one of the tournaments, Wesley So did great. He had like 5 wins and 4 draws. Maybe it was 4 wins and 5 draws. Anyway, he won the tournament. And Magnus has done reasonably well in blitz tournaments and rapid tournaments. I mean, probably the best player in the world at both, like over the last year. But not in slow tournaments. In slow tournaments, clearly not the best player in the world. If you ask me who's the best player in the world right now over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 months, since Wesley's in a little slump, I would say Levon Aronian. And Levon Aronian's winning every tournament. He's tied for first now. He's playing much better than he was 2 years ago and last year. And right now, as I'm sitting here, although maybe tomorrow it's going to change, he's number 2 in the world. So the players between 2 and 6 are very close to each other. They're within 10, 11 points. And it's possible when this tournament's over that Magnus is not number 1 in the world. It's not likely, but it's possible. And he's just not much better than everybody else. And I would say he's not better than everybody else. It seems like whatever tournament it is, Wesley So sometimes is the best. MVL sometimes is the best. Aronian sometimes is the best. One thing is clear. Nakamura is getting worse, and it's very strange because of his age. Obviously, I don't mind when he loses, but I mean, when he won Vaikanze Tata Steel, he played like a machine, and he did great. And this was 6 years ago, and yeah, I don't know what's happening. He's 50% usually. Now he's tied for last. Wesley So's having a bad tournament. Nepomniachtchi has a lot of bad tournaments and a lot of good tournaments. Nepomniachtchi is all up and down, but Nakamura isn't having good slow tournaments the last 4 years. And for somebody who was number 2, number 3, number 4 in the world, and he's in his 20s, it's strange to now he's going to be number 10. I think he's number 10 right now, which is weird because he's not. He's lower rated than Anand, and Anand's 47. And, by the way, I didn't mention Anand. Anand won today. I almost showed you that game. And Anand's playing almost mistake-free chess. He has 2 wins and 5 draws, no losses. Wow. So, yeah, very strange. Anyway, let's look at the game. I yelled at you guys enough, and you can write your crazy comments, and I'll delete them. But, yeah. Okay, so this is a very interesting game. This is Nakamura versus Aronian. And just like yesterday, and in a lot of games that I show you, this is a 4 nights English. I want to commend Nakamura and Aronian because a lot of the players play the same openings and play 20 moves of theory, and the computer says all zeros, and then they draw. And then the public, which is usually misinformed like you think oh, chess is a draw, chess is boring, it's not exciting, and the players are too good. None of that is true. Chess is not boring. Chess is not a forced. Chess is a draw, but it's not a boring draw. Chess can be very exciting, and there can be lots of decisive games. It just depends who the players are. And luckily, even though I'm not a fan of Nakamura personally, I like the way he plays chess because he's not playing for a draw every game, and he's not playing boring every game. He does some games, but especially when he plays Levon, they have a lot of decisive results. And that's because of the openings they play and the style they play. They don't play safe and then try to have 7 draws and 2 wins. That's not their goal, okay? It might happen, but that's not what they're trying to do. So, you don't see this opening very often now, but you did in the 80s and the 90s. It was funny, Kasparov visited today, the live commentary, and this is a couple of famous games he had with Anatoly Karpov in the World Championship match. So they started this way. Okay, it's not that common now, but it's interesting for us. All right, and in this position, black plays e4, which is very aggressive. And again, there's hundreds of Grandmaster games. Now the e-pawn is indefensible. It's attacked 3 times, and it's defended once. So you have to take one of the attackers. And now, Grandmasters have played both b takes c3 and d takes c3. I think Kasparov's actually played both moves. Both moves are reasonable. B takes c3 is more common, okay, but you can play the other way. Different kind of position. The e-pawn is still hanging, so everybody plays rook e8. And now Nakamura played the most common move, which is f3. And you can guess with the result of the game, never play f3. And now it's about 50-50 whether you take the pawn or play e3. In fact, Karpov's played both against Kasparov. In fact, I saw 2 games in the database where Aronian was white in this position. And if I can give a chess criticism of Nakamura, which I usually can't do, I can give other criticisms, but not chess criticisms. But I'll give him a chess criticism because I know him really well and I worked with him and so forth. Nakamura, his preparation in the opening is reasonable, but it's not 2800 level. When he gets to the end of his preparation, he doesn't understand the position like half the time. And I think people like MVL and Aronian and Magnus and Fabiano and Wesley, when they get to the end of their preparation, they understand what's going on, even though they don't know what the moves are because there's too many illegal moves. But they know like what to do. I think at the end of Nakamura's preparation, he often is just like, okay, my preparation's over. The computer says I'm better or equal, but yeah. I think this happens to him a lot. Okay, and Aronian played white in this position more than once, so I don't think this was a good opening choice. But okay, and the problem with Nakamura is, I think unless you're just the perfect person, it's hard to convince him, that he should be doing things because he doesn't necessarily believe other people, which I do agree with. If I worked with a coach, I think I would just do what he says, and then if I don't do well, I'd get another coach. But I think it's hard to tell Nakamura what to do. So anyway, so I don't like this opening choice from Nakamura because I think Levon understands it too well from both sides. That's my reasoning. Okay, he played e3, which is the more interesting of the two moves. You can take on e3 and have a very strange pawn structure. It's been played. Your c-pawns aren't too good. It's sort of like a super Budapest for black. But okay, he played d3, which is the more common move. And in this position, white usually plays queen b3, as in the 1987 World Championship match between Kasparov and Karpov. If I remember correctly, and I don't, but because this was the game Karpov won with black. I think that was the game Kasparov forgot to hit his clock, and he was in time trouble, and he went from something like 3.5 minutes to 1 minute, and then noticed that his clock was running. Wow. And he didn't lose on time, but he lost the game. I think that was actually this game. So queen b3 was the most common move for a long time. And there was a game between Svidler and Karyakin that was played last year. I'm not sure where it was played. And Svidler played queen a4. So Nakamura obviously saw that game, and he liked what he saw. And obviously Aronian saw the game, and this is the game. And he takes on d5, which gives his knight the e4 square. And this is why you play queen a4, I guess, because now if you trade knights on g5 and c6, the queen on a4 is defending the c6 pawn. So when you take back, you can play knight e4. And this is still the game Svidler-Karyakin from last year. This is still the game. And in this position, f4 is very reasonable. He played the move knight e4, which makes perfect sense because black just gave away the e4 square by advancing his pawns. In Svidler-Karyakin, Svidler played bishop to b2 here. I think the game ended in a draw. I'm pretty sure, but I could be wrong. When I turned the engine on for about a minute, it said bishop b2 and knight e4 were equally good. So knight e4 is a novelty. Although last year, queen a4 was a novelty. So theory progresses. So Nakamura must have looked at this, I don't know if it was before the game, but, in his English preparation. And computer says white is a tiny bit better. And now Levon is on his own because knight e4 has never been played. And we have a very interesting position. I'm guessing most people would be very, dogmatic about this position because it looks like it's really good for both sides, and you would just take a side and say it's better. You could argue white is better. White has two bishops. White's knight on e4 is a monster. White has the pawns on d3 and c3, which defend all the center squares, and so forth. Black has these pawns on e3 and f4. Wow. And the knight's on d5, and black has a very aggressive position, and you could argue, which I would, because of the bishop on g2, and white played the move f3, that bishop is no good. So generally in chess, there's a little from column A and there's a little from column B. So it's about equal. It depends, I guess. And what I like about this is the kind of position where the computer might say it's equal or slightly better for somebody, but it's more likely the game will be decisive. And in a lot of other openings, when it says equal, the players are too good to lose. But you could lose either side here pretty easily. Okay, so Levon played rook b8, which is one of the computer moves. I guess the idea eventually is to play b5. And, well, white played queen a3, so that takes the sting out of b5. and rook e6 was played, which is a very enterprising move. Black's getting ready for some kind of kingside attack, moving his rook over, and it's not clear what white should do. So he played the move c4. And also in this position, it could happen at some point your c3 pawn is hanging, like if I play rook takes e4 and sack in exchange. It can't happen now, but soon. So he played queen a3, stopping all of that. Okay, rook e6, c4, which is, say it at home, explosive, right? Okay, kicking the knight away, the knight's kicked away, bishop b2, and knight f5, it all makes sense. And d4 is just not a good move, but if you have the engine on, it says equal, maybe white's a little better, and leave the engine on forever. Don't ever turn off the engine, and it likes black. Yeah, and basically, when white played c4, which kicked the knight off of d5, it totally weakened the d4 square. And Levon brilliantly played knight e7 to f5, and he's controlling d4, and his knights have great squares. So c4 is actually anti-positional by giving the d4 square away. However, it gets the d5 square, and the bishop on b2 is active now, as opposed to white's bishops really weren't very active. So Levon's really playing well. In fact, I can't fault Levon for any of his moves this game. Okay, d4 is a pawn sacrifice, which I'm not a fan of. Black's clearly better now. He could take either way. He took with this knight. Doesn't matter. Takes, and he wins back his pawn with queen takes a7. And they were analyzing knight takes e2 check for a long time, which is fine. I think it's considered equal by the engine, but I'd rather have black. But Levon's move is probably better, just not keeping the pawn and just playing knight c6. And the reason is, even though the knight on e4 is good, the bishop on g2 is just terrible, and black has a big space advantage on the king side, and white has two isolated pawns on the queen side. So black's just better by playing normally. Okay, the queen has to escape attack, and queen f8. Queen e7 was a move, g5 was a move, and Levon's move is very good. Defends the f-pawn temporarily, so Hikaru traded queens, because Hikaru's king is definitely less safe. Black pieces can start coming to the king side. Now white's king is pretty safe. Rook d1, g5. It's just clear that black's better because he just has more space on the king side. The bishop on g2 is bad. And the two isolated pawns on the queen side. Okay, knight c3, going to d5. Another brilliant move from Levon, rook e7. This defends the c7 pawn, which is the only weak pawn for black, and it lets the bishop on c8 get out. And the rook can go over to the king side. I really like this move. Knight d5, rook goes to f7, defending the f pawn and the c pawn. Nice. h4, Hikaru likes to play actively. Computer doesn't like that move, but most 2800 players don't like to defend passively. They want to play actively, so it's a good human move. Rook a8, I'm getting the open file. a4 makes sense. Knight a5, attacking the c pawn. And the computer doesn't want to defend the c pawn because I think in the long run you have a lot of issues. For example, you can't play rook d4 because the black knight would go to b3, forking the rooks. Rook c1 is really passive, whichever rook you move there. I think in the long run, since your a pawn and c pawn are so weak, you can't really defend them. You just want active play. So Hikaru took on f4, played king h2, trying to either get the g file or trade off his terrible bishop, giving a pawn away. Rook c1. Friend of mine in Michigan used to say when I was a kid, losing pawns is okay because you get more open files. He was sort of half kidding. So when your pawns are gone, your rooks are really good. You just don't have any pawns left. Okay, so white's rooks are pretty good because he has a pawn less. Knight to d2. And everybody's taking pawns. Black's up a pawn. Bishop h3, trading off that terrible bishop. And bishop h3 is sort of a minor mistake, but it's practically a good move because in the long run, white's going to lose here. Black has a passed b pawn. Black has a great knight. Black has more space. White's bishop is terrible. And the only reason bishop h3 is a bad move is because Aronian's a genius. And if Aronian wasn't a genius, bishop h3 is fine. So practically, it's a reasonable move. Okay, so here Aronian played great. I mean, Aronian played great the whole game, but this was extra special. So pause your video and try to find the move that Levon played here. I'll wait. Okay, So he played knight takes f3 check, and you have to see about 7 moves ahead to play that. Every move is forced now. So you have to look at checks and captures. That's a check and a capture. So that's a move you have to analyze. Takes, rook check. You can't move your king because black plays bishop takes h3. So you have to retreat, always retreat. Rook g7. There's only one way to save the bishop. Rook g1. And now rook g3. So Levon saw this when he sacked a piece. And now, even though you don't see it, he's threatening rook h3 mate. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Okay, so you have to stop rook h3 mate. And that's not easy. Yeah, no, you can't move your bishop. It's pinned. Yeah, and you did too. Admit it. I want to see comments like I did move my bishop. Yeah. Okay, so he played king h1, which is completely forced, stopping rook h3 mate. And if you're Levon Aronian and you play knight takes f3 check and you see this position for sure, you're down a piece. So you have to see bishop h3, threatening the bishop on g2, and you can't trade bishops because rook takes h3 is mate. So the only move, and if you're my student, you already know the answer. If you watch my videos, you know the answer. Always play bishop f1. And Levon had to see this also because Levon's down a piece, and obviously e2 is winning a piece because the bishop's trapped, and he took. And Levon saw this position 100% when he played knight takes f3 check, and then he concluded, wow, this is great. All my pieces are perfect, and I'm up a pawn. f3 is hanging. He can't trade rooks on g3 because when I play f takes g3, I'm winning. Yeah, so he probably thought this is a pretty easy win. Knight d5. The computer wants to play bishop g2 check, which wins an exchange but loses the f-pawn. And a lot of grandmasters, and they're right to do it, they want to keep the pawns in the endgame because if you don't have any pawns, you won't win. So he decided instead of winning an exchange, he would take a pawn instead. Reasonable decision. Again, Hikaru plays actively, rook g6. Levon says, I can't believe you have an active piece. No active pieces for you. Trading. Bishop to d7, which is an excellent move because the bishop really wants to go to c6. That defends the b-pawn forever, and it lines up with all of white's pieces. Another thing that it does, it threatens to play, other than bishop c6, rook h3 check. The bishop was just on h3 and wins the h-pawn. So great move. King g2, which is forced, and then he traded rooks. The computer doesn't see this as totally winning, but the players know it's totally winning because black has a passed pawn, and the h-pawn is the right color for the bishop. This is something most grandmasters, and especially the super GMs, would notice immediately when they're in an endgame and they have a bishop, which rook pawn is the right color. So you can never sacrifice the knight for the b-pawn, but you have to, because you can't let me queen. And if you run your king over to the b-pawn, you can't defend your h-pawn. So it's just hopeless. What I like about Aronian's technique was I kept thinking b5, 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 push that pawn. But as I tell all of my students, you don't move your pawns up in the endgame. You do sometimes. You move your king. So Levon was moving his king. Good Levon, good job. Get that king active. There you go. Good job. And never moved his b-pawn. He showed me. He started moving his king. And bishop d7 is a very important move because when you play chess, you want to stop your opponent's counterplay. And so white could play king f5 or knight g4, and now he can't. So the truth hurts. Okay, so Nakamura's trying to stop the b-pawn and the h-pawn, but can't do that. And never move the b-pawn. I really like that. He just kept putting white in zugzwang. And here Nakamura resigned. Obviously, he's not going to hang his bishop with knight f6 check, but he could just play king to f5. And there's nothing white can do. White's going to lose his h-pawn. Bishop's going to go to f3 or f7. The knight's almost trapped. And by keeping the pawn on b7, white can never go take it. Like if the pawn was on b5, b4, b3, there could be some tricks where you sack your knight for one pawn, take the other pawn. You're not taking my b7 pawn. It's defended, and you'll never attack it. So the computer says something like +6 after it waits like a minute. So a fantastic game. Definitely the best game of the round, mainly because Nepomniachtchi didn't play well against Anand. Didn't put up a lot of resistance at the end. And Aronian's playing the best chess this tournament. And some people think Magnus is, and they say he should have won this game and he should have won that game. I mean, if you don't win winning positions, you're not playing the best. And Aronian's winning all his winning positions. He actually complained I think in one of the interviews that earlier he wasn't winning positions. And he got to stop that. You got to win when you're winning. And so he said it's not good enough just to play well. You got to win too. Okay, so that was a really good game. Nakamura Aronian, really interesting, really good for the players to play interesting chess and not, play 25 moves of theory and agree to a draw, and get double-edged positions where the better player is going to win. And Nakamura and Aronian have a lot of decisive results. It's not necessarily in Aronian's favor, but I mean, he beats Nakamura a lot and vice versa. There's not many draws between them, so that's good for us. Okay, so we have a three-way tie for first. MVL, Anand, and Aronian are tied for first with +2. I think Magnus is all alone at +1. And there's 3 players with -2, Nakamura, So, and Nepomniachtchi. And then the other players are just, 50% -1, Karyakin and Caruana, and there's Svidler. There's probably other players in the tournament. Or maybe I named them all. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I did name them all. Wow. Okay, if I can count to 10, which is 50-50. All right, like and subscribe and send crazy comments saying, Magnus is the best, I hate you, you're the worst, I'm from Norway, rawr. Although, if I say Aronian is the best, the Armenians will hook me up. So Aronian is the best. Okay, I'm still a big Wesley So fan. I don't really do this tournament-to-tournament stuff. Like, Wesley won that tournament, he's the best. Levon won this tournament, he's the best. And I tell my students that too. You want to look at like what you've been doing over the last year or two. So, for example, you at home, you're rated, 1,200. So last year, what was your rating? Were you rated 1,500 last year? Now you're 1,200? Not good. So every year you want to get better, and you want to see how you've been doing the last year. Over the last year, Wesley's been doing great, and this is a terrible tournament for him. And over the last 5-6 months, Levon's been doing great, better than Wesley's been doing. MVL's doing pretty well too. But, some people who are fan favorites like Badur Jobava, he has really good tournaments. In fact, he just did. He won a tournament like a month ago. But, man, when he has a bad tournament, the truth hurts. So a lot of people who are up and down are fun to watch like that. And everybody has their favorites. And generally, just look at the ratings. And right now, there's 6 people who are within 20 points of each other, the top 6 players in the world. And those guys are good. And when they have a bad tournament, it doesn't mean they're going to have a bad tournament next time. So, all right, I hope you enjoyed this video, no matter how much I rambled. The more I ramble, the more you donate. atlchessclub.com/donate, atlchessclub.com/events maybe for our tournaments. Our grand opening is 9/9, September 9th. Please come, even if you don't agree with me on all your crazy ideas. Like and subscribe here on what is this, Facebook? Is this Instagram? No, this is YouTube. Yeah, I knew it was something. And I guess they'll all be the same in the future. All the places will just merge. All right, see you guys later. Bye, everyone.